Hello, beautiful beings, and welcome to the episode of today. So this is a head noise episode. This is going to be another voice mail episode. So where people send in their voicemails or voice messages and I get to answer them. I loved the last episode. The feedback on the last episode was so great as well. So thank you for everyone who gave me feedback, but for everyone who actually, spoke in, I should say, sent the voice message, because I feel like it's such a cool way to, I don't know, I feel like you hear the emotion in people's voices, you hear the tone in which they're delivering it. It's just deeper. It feels like I'm actually chatting to you. So love that so much. I really appreciate it. Also, for those of you that are hanging on to this cortisol episode that I have announced and hyped up, because on my Instagram, I put that I'm doing an episode on cortisol and also the mix of caffeine with cortisol and the effects of caffeine on cortisol release and all of that. That is coming. However, I feel like I kind of created a bit of a monster for myself, because I was like, I'm doing a cortisol episode. Everyone asks questions. I had so many questions come through. It is probably one of the question boxes that has received, I'm not exaggerating, other than maybe once when I did something on a specific breakup question, this is probably one of the biggest responses I've ever had. I'm talking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people asking about cortisol face, caffeine in the morning. Can you drink coffee on an empty stomach? It is just blown up. So I'm like, I need to go in depth with this, and it's probably going to be a 2-parter episode, but you're going to love it. It's going to be comprehensive. It's going to be fun. It's going to be educational. It's going to be a good time. So that's going to be coming in the next week or two. Okay. So stay tuned. It's happening. All right. Hello, my beautiful beings. Whether you're a long-time listener to this podcast or tuning in for the first time, I hope you'll check out my new audiobook, How to Chase Change, 30 Days to Master Your Mindset. It's an actionable, step-by-step 30-day guide to teach you how to shift your mindset and create the change you want to see in your life, from physical and mental health to your relationships, career, self-confidence, and beyond. How to Chase Change is available now wherever audiobooks are sold. Start listening today. Let's just dive straight into the episode of today. So I'm going to play the voice messages. I love these voice messages. They're so good. And I will be answering. So let's get started on the first one. And also, what I've done is that Shania picks these voice messages. And then when I listen to it, I'm listening to it for the first time. So she knows very well how to vet them based on, a lot of different things. But yeah, let's do it.
Hey Alexis, have been listening to your podcast for a few months now. I absolutely love it. It's honestly helped me change my life in many different ways. So, growing up, my father was always away from work, coming in and out of my life, would also make promises he couldn't keep. My stepfather wasn't around very much either. Mama always had to be mother and father figure. I also think I've formed some abandonment issues from this that has unfortunately affected my past relationship. Also formed a lot of anger from this that I'm still trying to overcome. Would love for you to do an episode on abandonment, how you can heal from abandonment and not let it affect future relationships. Also had any brain facts around this as well, please, would be amazing. Thank you so much, Queen. Keep on killing it.
Thank you so much for sending that in. That is a great question. And I feel like I do need to do an entire episode on abandonment, pain, and all of that, as far as from childhood and also within relationships as well. But there's a few resources that I can point to you to, and a few overarching tips that I can speak to. One really good thing is to listen to my episode on attachment theory, which came out ages ago. And I talk about the different attachment styles and how the form of attachment that you had when being raised can and likely will heavily impact how you form attachments in your adult relationships. Now, not in every case, and there are definitely outliers, and you can also form different attachment styles through things that happen to you later on in life. That is all true. But for the most part, that's what attachment theory is based on. And there's a lot of evidence and, there's the huge body of work that supports that. So when you look at how you are attached, if you constantly were let down or felt unloved or felt like bottom of the priority, then you're likely going to have some kind of attachment, like anxious attachment or anxious avoidant attachment style. Okay, so the number one thing that you want to do is really understand which one it is. And then once you understand which kind of anxious attachment style it is, because there's only one that's secure, the other three are either, there's avoidant, there's also disorganized attachment as well. So number one is identifying which one it is and getting clear on what that looks like, because you're going to realize that you're not alone in this. There's a lot of there's many people that have gone through it as well, but there's a lot of things that you can read up on it that's going to help you truly, truly understand why you perceive situations the way you do and why you have these beliefs about what you're deserving of or what you're likely to get, which then determines how willing you are to drop your wall, to trust somebody, to allow yourself to love somebody. So, but the main thing is do the reading, do the research, and it's not about blaming. You never want to get stuck in a position of blaming, because while it's true that it's completely unfair what might have happened to you growing up, the main aim in what you are doing is to move forward so you yourself can lean into a healthier or a healthy attachment style. Secure attached is what it's called. And so you can have better opportunities within your relationship, so you can be happier, so you can feel safer, all of the above. It's I think good to acknowledge where something has come from, but I don't want you to pause there or wait there or get stuck there and sit in this blame game of like, you did this, you did that, because I think acknowledging it is fine, and then thinking regardless of whose fault it is or what happened, it is now up to me to take this knowledge and make some changes with it. And I'm going to do it in the most peaceful way possible. I'm not trying to dig up more stuff. I'm not trying to make myself feel worse here. And blaming someone can actually make you feel like hold on to more animosity or hold on to, pain. But more so, it really serves to teach you as to why your brain is responding the way it is. It's not about there being a flaw. It's not about something being wrong with you. It more comes down to, this was occurring, so my brain learnt these lessons and chose to protect me in this way. Okay. And now that I understand that, I'm able to then move forward with that. So so I can't give you a straight up answer because it's very long and convoluted, but definitely go into attachment theory, look at different anxious attachment styles, potentially disorganized, but I think it might be one of the more anxious attachment styles. And then try and learn as much about that as possible. And then listen to my episode also on anxious attachment and see if that one helps as well. So thank you so much for sending that in. I really appreciate it. Okay, next one.
Hey Alexis, just a quick one. I have a friend who I would have considered my best friend, and things have been getting a little bit odd lately. Anyways, I went out with a separate group of friends tonight and signed into the pub. And my ID popped up that this best friend of mine had used my ID previously in the night to get in. And I asked the security guard, like, what? How? What? And she was like, yeah, she had the physical card, your physical license, because I use the app on my phone. And I was like, that's so weird. Anyways, got home and realized that my license is not in my wallet. So it turns out that this friend has stolen my license. It's super weird, and I don't know why. I don't know what the story is behind it, why she's doing it. I don't know if she's, her license has been taken off her at the moment. I'm not sure. It's so odd. And I don't know how to go about bringing it up with her. I'm super non-confrontational. And I'm a really trusting person. So I feel like my trust has been abused majorly. But I don't know what to do. It's super tricky. And feels super icky. Anyways, please help. Love you. Thanks.
Wow, I'd love to watch like the footage back of my facial expressions that whole time. I'm like, what? Oh my God, what? If you're watching this on Spotify, you can see all the expressions on my face. But what the fuck? Can I just say, what who, where, and why. So firstly, she's stolen from you, number one. That is beyond, okay, beyond the scope of what a friendship is about. She's stolen from you. She's lied to you. And then she's gone and, okay, oh God, consent. There's so many things going on here. For those of you that aren't, I don't know if it's only New South Wales, but there's a handful of states at least, well, definitely New South Wales, just to clarify what that means. We use a digital license. So our license is on our phones. There's an app with our driver's license on it, but we also get issued a physical driver's license card. I know there are some states or even internationally that may or may not have the digital version and a physical version. So obviously when you check into like the RSL and they need your ID, you can hand in the physical version or show the digital. So obviously that's what's happened here. That's why there's two versions of the license. Now, how did you know? I wish I could ask you this. How did you know it was her? Because she would have signed in under your name if she was using your ID. So how did you know it was her? Is it because you already suspect this behavior of her? Maybe they had a photo. That's weird. Anyway, did they take a photo of you as well as the license? I don't know. Anyway, can I just say, number one, that's not what a friend does. You said she's your best friend. That's not respectful. If she's lost her license, either lost it as in it's been taken off her, or if she's physically lost her license and doesn't have the digital copy, or if she's allowed her license to expire and can't be fucked renewing it for whatever reason, so there's three reasons of why she might not have a license, still does not excuse stealing. And if you want to use a fake ID or use someone else's ID, she could have just said, babe, I'm hard up. I need to get into the RSL or I need a night out. Can I please borrow your license? Whatever. You likely would have at least been like, not judgmental of her asking, because that wouldn't shock me if a friend asked me for that. And then you could either want to help them or not or whatever, but you'd have a decision if you want to lend her your ID, okay? This is like identity theft or whatever on like a smaller scale, but it literally is. The next thing you've got to realize is it's all about consent as well. So what if in the past you had let her use your ID once? Maybe you've done it in the past where you've let her use it once to get into somewhere. Even then it's not okay because you've got to ask for permission every time. It's kind of like that whole thing of if someone borrows your car one time, it doesn't mean that they are now entitled to use your car whenever they want. They need to ask every single time. So there is no reason or excuse or no explanation as to why that behavior is okay. All right? So she didn't ask for consent this time, if ever. And then she's also gone into your stuff, your wallet, retrieved this fucking card, and then gone and used it without letting you know about it, without asking for it, without saying, hey, sorry, no. So I know you're not confrontational, but this is next level shit and you have to say something, okay? Now, I think it might be easier for someone that's not confrontational to do this over writing. It's always easier to do something over writing. You obviously are sure that it's her. I don't know what your evidence is. Obviously, you know it's definitely her who did it. Maybe they showed you the photo, I don't know. So I would write up a very strongly worded message and say, I don't know what your reasonings are, and I'm more than happy for you to explain to me what that is. However, stealing from me is such a breach of trust. It's not even like, I don't know why you thought that was acceptable. I would love for you to try to explain yourself, but I don't understand how you think it's acceptable to steal from a best friend who she's not a friend. And I would, I will give you the opportunity to try and explain yourself because you are my friend, but none of this is making sense. And the fact that you haven't even, come to me, you've just think that I would like lose my life. Like, how did you think that I would respond to this? I would write all of this down in a text message and send it. And you know what? There's a chance that friendship is going to take a massive hit and a massive, it's going to drop down significantly in the rungs of friendship as far as the hierarchy of friendships go, or you're going to lose a friend altogether. But I feel like that level of trust, especially going through your shit and stealing from you, especially if you don't have that kind of relationship where you trawl through people's shit and just grab whatever you want. I know some people have that kind of friendship and maybe she thought a license is the same as borrowing a pair of shoes. I don't know. But if this is not normal within your friendship, then it's not okay. So I would just send it in a message. You don't have to confront her verbally, and don't come it from angry. Come from it from, I need some sort of clarity around why you thought this was okay and why you thought that this is an okay thing to do as a friend. okay? Because if there was a reason why you didn't have a license, that still does not explain why you stole and lied to a friend. All right? This is outrageous. And everyone who's listening to this is going to be like, not one of my friends would do that shit to me, ever. Okay? And it's not saying you got to hate her and cut her out, but just say, this behavior is an absolute joke. I'm going to let you explain yourself, but you've got to start, you need to grow up, because you're not going to keep many friends along the way if you are doing this kind of shit. Wow, babe. I'd be pissed off. Imagine if Liv stole my ID with her like white blonde hair, trying to pass off as a Uruguayan. Lol. Okay. Third one.
Hi, calling in from New York.
Love
and
New York.
My question is, I've been in a relationship now for about a year and 4 months, and we've been kind of having a lot of issues lately. Not a lot of issues, just small stuff, but we've been having fights here and there. And a lot of times during these conversations, the idea comes up from my girlfriend where she's like, I can understand if you want something else. I can understand if this isn't working for you. And like, over the course of our relationship, she's probably said things like that almost a couple dozen times. And I always come back and I'm like, no, this is what I want. And then, I try to make sure that this is also what she wants. But the thought is just lodged in the back of my head of like, every time she says something where she allows me, she's giving me permission to break up with her, I don't know if that's what she wants me to do, and then I keep bucking the trend, and it's created this deep insecurity that like the responsibility of this relationship is on me, like whether or not it goes on, and like, is she just with me because she likes the security and she will never willfully leave me, but if I left that would be okay. So I'm having trouble trying to figure that out.
That is such a good question. And I feel like so many people hopefully can like relate to this and see themselves in you, because that is very much a kind of knee-jerk response when you feel threatened or where you feel like something is at risk, that you'll kind of pull the other way. I actually think it's the opposite based on what I know about this topic. And I actually think it's a form of insecure attachment in the sense of, so a lot of people who have a kind of, back to attachment, this is a whole attachment theory podcast, which I love, but back to this idea of different styles of attachment. One of the things that happens in insecure attachment is that you genuinely believe that you may not be deserving of love like somebody else is, or you feel like you're not as lovable as maybe somebody else is. So in the back of your mind, and I'm talking from her perspective, not yours, she might be feeling, I'm not worthy of love, I'm not as lovable, and not to a crazy degree, because you got to look at insecure attachment and like anxious attachment on a spectrum, okay? So there's some where it's like fully off the charts, and there's some that it's kind of creeping up in the back end. So you could be like, oh, but she's not really anxious in general. That's okay, because it might not be like blowing up at the upper end of this kind of spectrum. But it's this idea of, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, unintentional. It's not like people want to be abandoned, but they think, I'm unlovable. This is my belief, and this is what I believe to be true. There's someone out there who they love more. There's this, there's that. So then when there's conflict, they think, does this person feel stuck that they need to love me? And so they then will challenge you. And normally what they're wanting, for the most part, in 99.9% of the cases, is they want you to turn around and say, that's not what I want, I don't want it. And that's where they get you reaffirm that you actually do love them. That's where they feel safe and secure in that moment. And they're seeking this validation and saying, you can leave if you want, you can always leave if you want. It's a form of seeking validation. It's kind of double-edged. That's how they seek their validation, because you then turn around and say, that's not what I want, I love you, I want to be with you, whatever. It stops what you're actually arguing about, because you've made it about something bigger now. You've made it about the actual longevity or the existence of the relationship instead of this one thing you were arguing about. So it kind of throws it off course, and it makes them feel, like safe in that moment. But then if you were to leave, you would affirm a belief that she had, being like, see, I knew it, that they're going to eventually leave me, or that I'm not really that lovable because people don't stick around, okay? I do not believe that she's kind of saying, I don't want to be here, but I'm trying to give you the out. For the most part, that's not really how people will, I think this is coming from an kind of anxious attachment, and she needs to feel loved and validated in that moment, and she wants, not saying that it's okay. And when I released an anxious attachment episode recently, I spoke about how it can be really, really challenging for someone who's more securely attached to be in these situations, because they feel exactly that. And I said it, like, I think it's 2 or 3 weeks ago the episode came out. I said that for someone that's securely attached, when they're constantly being asked this, they start to think, do you even want this? Which is exactly what you're thinking, which is a normal response. Because when you're securely attached, you think, if you're saying that and you feel that you're worthy of love in general, then this means that you mustn't want to be in this relationship. So the way that you would calculate this is going to be very different to how she may be calculating this, okay? It's very challenging coming from your perspective, because every time you have a conflict, you come across this existential question about the relationship, and you're like, that's not at all where this conversation was heading, and now it's here, which is, it's kind of been derailed, okay? So what I recommend you do is, when things are good with her, I want you to sit down and say, I'd love to talk about some things about how we resolve conflict. So that way, next time something does crop up, we can still be each other's safe space, and we can still, discuss things like in depth without feeling threatened or without feeling unsafe. And mind you, it's important to do this when you're not arguing. I know it's hard to bring up these kinds of conversations when things are good. It's so hard, because normally when things are good, you're like, I don't want to fucking bring up a hard conversation. I want to ride the good wave. But you've got to do it in a really gentle, open, safe space and say, look, I want to talk about this because I love you. I love our relationship. I really value where it's headed. I just want to make it better. And I think that if we can really nail how we resolve conflict, we can just get stronger. So already you're approaching it from an angle of, I want more longevity out of this relationship. I want us to be a team, but can we talk about this thing? It might not be easy to talk about, but I've already prefaced it with, this is what I want, so let's talk. And then once she's aware that that's what you want to talk about, just say, I notice that every time we have these arguments about anything, you then question me on if I want to be in this relationship, or that I'm welcome to leave. I understand that this might be coming from you fearing that I don't love you as much as I say I do. But from my perspective, it makes me feel that maybe you don't want to be in this relationship. I don't want to feel like that when we have an argument. I don't want an argument to represent that we don't love each other. People that love each other are allowed to disagree. They are allowed to argue. They are allowed to have conflict. And I don't want every time we have a conflict to feel unsafe about the status of our relationship. So let's find ways to work around that. Let's find ways or things that I can say for you to feel safe and for me to feel safe in this space when we talk about these things. I think a conversation like that makes her feel seen and heard, but also makes her feel safe without you validating every tiny insecurity. You're saying bigger picture kind of thing. I'm not here trying to make you feel validated when you're fishing for it, but instead I'm trying to lay the foundations down of a healthy relationship so you feel validated more regularly, instead of when you're having these peaks of insecurity about the relationship, which of course is going to peak during an argument, and then you're seeking validation in that kind of way, which then makes me think you don't want to be here. Okay? So hopefully that helps, but I think having that conversation when things are good and calm is actually quite crucial. But the way you open up and talk about it is going to be really, really important. I have those conversations with Tyrone all the time, not about this specific topic, but when I want to raise something about our relationship, I do it when we're calm and good. And I always preface it with, I love how things are going, but there's one thing that I really want to talk about because I feel that we could tackle this better. And I feel like every time we approach these things, we actually put it into practice and it takes our relationship to the next level. So this is just another thing I'd like to discuss. And he always welcomes it quite well. And I feel the first time I ever did it with him, he was a bit like, oh, surprised and a bit, but I'm such a communicator that he kind of got used to it. And now he's like, yeah, let's talk. So it will become something that's quite easy to talk. Maybe the first time it's going to feel a bit like clunky and hard, but it's all in your approach and how much of a safe space you create for each other. So thank you for sending that in. Awesome question. All right, last one for the episode.
Hi, Queen. I love your podcast a lot. I'm just going to go for this because I notice I've only got 90 seconds here. So basically, I feel like I've been a bit of an arsehole. I went to go mountain biking with a friend, and we kind of joined up to do this like mountain biking girls group thing. It wasn't the first time we'd done it, but anyway, I show up. My friend's already there, and they've got like this workshop happening. And I was just feeling really irritated that day. Like I was just jittery. I was so impatient. I politely excused myself and decided to go up the trails by myself. And anyway, I did that. My friend kind of asked me like, "Hey, are you okay?" Blah blah blah, and I said, like, "Yeah, I am. Don't worry about me. Have fun. Like, I'm just gonna go," which was sort of risky. Basically, now she is not very happy with me. I did apologize, but yeah, I'm just wondering if you think I'm the arsehole here. I kind of feel like I am. I wish I had a bit more time to go into detail here, but I don't. Anyway, thanks again for your awesome podcast.
Okay, I love that you sent that in. That's great. Look, being very light, putting this very lightly, yes, you're the asshole in it, but I want to talk about how this can be resolved relatively easily. And I'm going to talk about why I think it was such an issue with your friend. And this all comes down to communication. Why it was an issue is the lack of communication, and how you're going to resolve this is with really great communication. So, what I gather is that you both decided to do something together as friends, and you're joining another group, okay, which you're obviously not close with because you said you've done it before, but it seems like you're not close with these other people. So your friend was probably expecting to be having a nice adventure, yes, with a group, but with you, okay? Otherwise, she would have just signed up and done it on her own. She wanted to do this with you. So she already had a level of expectation from you, as she would, because you both were doing it. You both had agreed to do this thing, okay? So that's number one. She had an expectation of how the day was going to go. You're feeling a certain way, which is completely valid. You're not feeling great. You're jittery. You might be feeling off, stressed, anxious, whatever these feelings are, you're not feeling great. You get there later. So already you probably feel detached from the group. You're not on their wavelength because you've arrived a bit later. That's probably exacerbating these feelings that you're having, okay? So now you're probably finding it harder to click, and then you think, oh, probably like I'm got head noise or whatever. I'm just going to like tap out and go off. First mistake here is your lack of communication with your friend, okay? Then when she tries to reach out to be like, what the fuck's going on? Like, are you okay? You then kind of brush her off and say, have fun. And she's kind of like, wait a minute, cunt. We said we were going to do this thing together. And now you're telling me to have fun while you leave. So she's quite confused and probably doesn't understand what's going on and is a bit off. But meanwhile, you're like, I'm so in my head. If I stay around her, I'm probably going to have this foul energy and then I'm going to piss her off even more. So I understand that you're like, I'm better off removing myself because I'm like irritable. I'm agitated. I'm not going to be a good time and I'm probably just going to whatever. So I get it. But look at how differently this could have gone. You could have had the initial go off on your own. She's thought it's weird. She's then approached you and you could have just pulled her aside and said, babe, I don't know what the fuck's going on, but my head, I'm just like I'm not in a fucking good zone today. I'm so sorry, but do you mind if I just kind of go off for a bit? Like, I don't want to ruin your day. Let's like reconvene at the end, but like I've just got crazy anxiety, or I've just got like, I don't know what it is. I just feel like I need to just like shake off this energy. Is that okay? Like, do you mind? Do you understand? Notice the difference. Communication. She's instantly like, oh my God, babe. Like if a friend did that to me but was really open, being like, it's not it for me today. This ain't fucking it. I'm not feeling good. I still need, so the outcome's still the same. I still have to go off on my own. I still need to clear my head. This is not the environment where it's going to happen. If anything, I might be more irritable. I'm also apologizing that we did have a plan and now I'm going against that plan. So I'm acknowledging it and I'm apologizing, but I'm being really open. I've pulled you aside. You feel heard, you feel listened to. I'm able to tell you how I feel. And because of that intimacy in our conversation, you're likely to receive it a whole lot better than me saying, oh, I'm fine, you have fun, and then leaving. So because that didn't happen, you can still do it after the fact. So with an apology, there's many kinds of apologies. One apology is I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what happened, whatever. That's just an I'm sorry. And that's very surface level apology. That's kind of like when you make a child apologize and you're like, apologize to for kicking whatever over. I'm sorry. There's no acknowledgement. There's no true like emotion behind it. There's no understanding of each other's feelings. Then a deeper apology would be like, hey, babe, I know I said I'm sorry, but do you mind if we talk? I'd really want to like just nut this out. I realize now that through my behavior, I came across as rude, maybe like really dismissive of you. And when you start to acknowledge the ins and outs of what happened, your friend feels heard. An apology where they feel heard and understood is it weighs so much more, because you're saying, I've processed this. I've looked at it from your perspective. I've seen how it affected you. Even if I still was going to do it regardless, but I've seen how you've seen it. And I also want to explain myself. So that's a much deeper, better apology. So I don't know how you did apologize, but try and think, what was the quality of that apology? Because hopefully you're able to give a much better quality. You're able to say, babe, I've thought about it, and I've really seen how this could have affected you. And I just want to say, I feel like I was the asshole in this situation, and I don't like that. And I don't think it's fair. We'd agreed to do this together. I could have communicated a lot better. Yes, I had crazy head noise, but I kind of brushed you off and dismissed you, and I was rude. And I can see it from your point of view. I've thought about it, and it's not fair on you. I am really sorry. That's a much different, like, I don't know how you apologize, but if someone apologized to me like that, I'd be like, wow, they really took the time to think about how it affected me. And everyone has bad days. And I see that they were just having a bad day, and I'm not going to hold it against them, and I'm not going to hold a grudge. Bang, instantly, I'm not angry, I'm not harboring. But if someone just did that to me and dismissed me and was like, sorry, I'd be like, what the fuck? What the fuck just happened? And are they still pissed off at me? And what? Like, it all comes down to communication. So yeah, you might have been the asshole in this situation, but there might have been a reason why you needed to leave. You might have been like on edge, but it just comes down to how you communicate with your friend. And if she's a friend, she's likely going to be able to understand what you have to say, and it will be okay. But in future, just think, I can still do what I need to do in a situation. I can still leave something I don't feel comfortable being in. But if it's a best friend, maybe I can try my best, if possible, to communicate how I'm feeling so they don't feel unloved or rejected, or that I'm just blatantly being rude to them. Okay? Guys, thanks for listening, for tuning in. We have a part 2 of a head noise, because I thought I don't want to completely abandon the written in head noises, because some people write it in, some people want a bit of a longer story, some people don't want to send a voicemail in, which is perfectly fine. So I thought I'd do 2. I'd do 1 voicemail, good times, and then 1 written where I read them out tomorrow, which is equally good times. So thank you for listening to today's episode. And as always, remember, be kind to yourself, be kind to your brain. Don't take shit from anyone, and especially don't take shit from yourself. Danke!